Harmonising the room. Hello and welcome to Simon on the Sofa. This is like our midnight on the sofa because I'm with my lovely friend Tiffany Crosara. Hello.
Hello.
Some of you may have already seen mine and Tiffany's first talk. If you haven't, then you can watch that on the sofa. And Tiffany was one of the first people that spoke to me, and since then we've built a
ever.
Yeah. Ever. I asked about 10 people, and it's like everyone said no. And Tiffany was like never met me before, and come and joined me, and we've built up a beautiful friendship since then. So the sofa united us, and as really, I just can't really say how amazing and our friendship's become, hasn't it? Really
great.
Yeah. Really pure. And also a lot of the people that you might also see on the sofa have come as recommendations from Tiffany, and I've just been meeting some really wonderful people, and the journey's continued. So welcome. We've just harmonized the room with the Tibetan singing bowl, and tonight is actually the birthday of Lauren, which is or was Tiffany's child, and basically Lauren passed this life. Tonight is the anniversary of her passing, but as Tiffany likes to call it, is the spirit birthday. Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. The birthday back into the spirit world.
Yeah. So do you want to tell them why we're here?
Yeah.
Yeah, you tell it. You tell the people why we're here.
Yeah. Well, last time I saw you, you'd said about your birthday, and I said, "Oh, that's 2 days after Lauren's birthday back in the spirit world." And you said, "Oh, you don't talk about her much." And I think my first answer was like, "Oh, well, it was a long time ago." And then I was stopped and was like, "I'll talk about it on the sofa if you like."
And I was like, yes.
Yeah, because I really felt that it would help a lot of people in that type of situation, or with any death, but particularly that death of a child.
Definitely.
Situation. But since then, there's been a lot of synchronistic messages, and it just became bigger than Lauren in that sense. It became about the universe, it became about the world, and it was like a huge universal channeling going on about the times now and everything along those lines. So it's been much bigger. I think at that time only Lauren knew what this talk was actually really going to be about.
Yeah, can you imagine? Can you imagine? This brought like from Lauren's death, from your experience to the events that have happened in both our lives, to us now meeting. What are we on? How many years later? Is this what anniversary is this?
14th.
This is the 14th anniversary. 2011. With so much going on in the world at the moment, I mean, you just can't describe what's happening in the world at the moment. And then you find yourself at almost 10 p.m. on an evening on 10:10. Is it 10:10? Right. So on an evening when we're now going to share this beautiful story to the world. It's magical, huh?
Oh gosh.
I feel blessed.
I feel blessed. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
This feels like the mother of all anniversaries of her birthday back in the spirit world.
Yeah.
And I can't believe this is the way to spend the anniversary. It's the way to spend the anniversary.
Definitely. And look what we have. We have candles. This almost wasn't going to happen. There's been a few things. A few things have popped up. Like for example, I thought you was having blocks. Then you're like, oh, is there a block with the travelling time? And it's like, is it going to happen? We've got some beautiful pink carnations, right? you want to share what the carnations represent as well?
They represent Lauren.
Yeah.
Yeah, every year I get some pink carnations on this day. Normally throw them into the sea because that's where her ashes are, so it's all around. And I was thinking all day, I must get some pink carnations. And I just have one of those days, which is often the way these days of like, I'm just running behind myself really these days. And I thought, oh, you know, pink carnations, they're just, I'm not seeing them anywhere, I'm not having time to go and get them. They've just got to manifest in my path if I'm going to get them. And then I get off the bus to get here. Smack bang in front of me is a shop with pink carnations outside. One bunch left.
I love it. Of course. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you for that manifestation.
350 miles journey.
Yeah.
And right at the last leg.
Yeah, right at the last leg off the bus, there they are. So that's just here, right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
How amazing is that? I just like, for me, you know, people listening to this, they might think, oh, you know, just, yeah, it's a coincidence. It's like, it's just, for me, where we're moving to consciously, with this conscious awareness, this evolving consciousness, they're just, if we can just open up to that, you know, what is being manifested before us, what is there, you know, there's no, for me, there's no coincidences.
No.
There's just messages.
That's right.
And signs and just support and love and, you know. So
absolutely.
Wonderful. I'm really, you know, I know I said it, and I'm really, really happy to be here with you celebrating, you know.
Thank you.
So, so where should we start? Should we start with, what do you...
I'll start.
Yeah,
with
please.
Last birthday.
Yeah.
Because I think this is where it all began. Her last birthday was the 24th of November last year. And again, it was quite a special anniversary because I was actually able to spend it with my family, and that's not often the case these days. And I am blessed enough to have a family that does come from a spiritual kind of perspective. So my mum and my grandparents had just really started going back to Spiritualist Church, which has been something that's been on and off throughout, really. And so I said, right, okay, that falls on a Sunday. I'm going to make the trek, and I'm going to come, and I'm going to go to Spiritualist Church with you for Lauren's birthday. So off we trundled, and at that time my mum had a friend who had just become a grandma to a little girl who had serious heart problems. And her friend had rang her up at the last minute and said, can I come with you? I really need to come with you. So she came, and they announced at the church that it was Lauren's birthday. And then my mum's friend was like mortified, and she felt like she was intruding in some way in her presence. And so I just said to her, no, not at all, you know, because Lauren, I'm sure there's no coincidence that, you know, you've just become a grandma like my mum did. And my mum said that grandma is even worse because you see your child go through the pain and you see your grandchild go through the pain. A double whammy.
Yeah. And
I said there's no coincidence here that you're here tonight and that I'm here tonight, because this just doesn't happen normally, and I'm sure Lauren has kind of orchestrated it so that you are here. And I really think that touched her quite strongly. And what happened from that moment on was we sent a lot of healing. So that lady was a Reiki master. My mum is, I prefer the word teacher than master. You know, Japan, it's all to do with Japan, and master means teacher in Japan, that's all it means. And so we were all sending Reiki to this little girl with heart problems because that's what Lauren had as well. And I just began to feel Lauren's presence around really very strongly, and I would dream about her, and it was dreams that I had reoccurring after she died, which was finding her and then her dying again, and I'd feel like I had been let her down in a way. I was too late. I was always too late. And it's like a dream where I'd realise that she was still alive. And it would be like, oh my gosh, she's still alive, and I've left her for years, and she's actually here. And then I'd find her and she'd just be dying again because I was too late. And this dream came back to me a lot. And her presence, I just really, really felt her presence quite strongly. So then when you said, actually you need to rewind a bit, because the next thing that happened was about a week before we'd said, let's do the sofa. I'd seen Sabby for an angel healing.
Yeah.
And she said that I was being prepped to work with people in bereavement and channel a meditation around putting them into contact with who they lost, the living and the dying, bringing them together, the living and the passed over even. So I was a bit kind of, I don't know, I kind of done bereavement work after Lauren, and it was something that I found very heavy, and it was something that I felt I didn't really want to go there, in a sense. So I was a bit resistant to the message, to be honest, at first, like we can be. But that night I had a dream that I was looking after an adult who was wrapped in a swaddling, and they were dying, and I was, it was long term, and I was basically just there as the sole kind of carer, as I was with Lauren. And when it got to the point where they were about to pass over, they floated up to the ceiling, and I floated up to the ceiling with them. And I remember thinking in my dream, wow, this is crazy, I've never floated in a dream before. And I was so excited about that. That feeling was incredible. I was like, wow, weightlessness, this is what it feels like. Fantastic.
Nice space.
And they telepathically communicated to me, I know I'm going to go now, and I'm not scared. And I knew they weren't scared because I could feel. It was complete telepathic communication, not just with thoughts but with feelings. And so I just telepathically sent back to them, I know. And then there was this song about rainbow, but I can't remember what it was, and I don't even think it exists, but it was incredibly powerful. And I woke up and I was just left with this impact of rainbow being very, very strong. And then I started thinking about Lauren, and Lauren was a Sagittarius, and the card in the tarot, which is about Sagittarius, is Temperance. And Temperance is the Greek goddess Iris, and she actually oversees the passage of the souls into the next world
as they go over.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And she's the only goddess that has access to all 7 planes, so she can go everywhere. Hence, she's also indicated by the rainbow with the 7 colours.
7 colours.
And so I was like, oh, okay, that's the first channeling of this meditation. It's got to be about the rainbows. And so I woke up the next day after being told this by Sabby, thinking, yeah, there is something.
So this was the next day.
On.
This was the next day that Sabby had told you there's going to be some.
Yeah, she told me that evening. I went to bed about 3 hours later. I woke up from this dream and thought, oh, okay, yeah, there's something cooking here. There is something cooking. And so from that moment, things started to step up quite strongly, and I really didn't know how it was all going to come together. And I guess I really need to speak a bit about Lauren.
You just took the words out of my mouth. Yeah. I was just going to say, because I know where you're sort of heading with that. Yeah, which is beautiful. There's a whole cryptic story with this, guys. I mean, and it's not even cryptic, but there's a course of events and a course of synchronicities that really lead us to where we are today in evolution. So yeah, I think what would be lovely at this point would be if we just say, what happened maybe with Lauren's journey, because when you just mentioned a second ago about how you kept thinking that she was going, there's also a reason for that, because she sort of come and go a few times, didn't she, in the time that she was here?
Yeah, she did.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, Lauren's story is an incredible story. From the moment I was pregnant, the happenings that happened were quite strong. I'd seen in the tarot that something was wrong, and in those days I didn't have the understanding of the tarot that I do now, and I was in a place of fear of it, and would be like, oh my God, and just kind of threw them away in the cupboard, didn't want to speak to them again, and just tried to block it. And then the next strange thing that happened was I was 6 weeks pregnant, and I used to work at a petrol station and the pumps had gone down. I had to go out onto the forecourt, and there was this one guy, AA man, and I said, can you not use the pumps for a couple of minutes? I need to kind of do something. And he just looked at me and he said, how's the baby?
You're like, you're supposed to be fixing cars.
Absolutely.
Well, you asked me, because I'll sort the pumps out, all right?
It's become a bit of theme, AA man.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Messages
I'm
since.
sure, yeah.
But I was just like, I don't have a baby. And he said, yeah, you do. Just because it's not born yet doesn't mean you haven't got one. I was like, do I know you? He was like, do you know me?
Yeah, he's like, I'm the AA man. Stop it.
I was like, no, I don't know you. Do you know my husband? Do you know, well, it wasn't my husband then, but the father.
Yeah.
And he was like, no. He said, look, I just know that you're pregnant. He said, and I know that you're going to have her on November the 24th. And then he got really cocky. He was like, tell me I'm right. Tell me I'm right. Like some Irish leprechaun.
In his outfit with the AA van there. You're like, what's this? Is this happening? Excuse me.
Absolutely. And so,
that would have probably just freaked me out. And I would have been like, listen, this is too much for me. I'll see you later.
And so I just said, no, you're not right, actually. It's November the 9th.
Yeah. Look at you getting into a battle with him.
Yeah.
I'll tell you it's right, okay.
And he just looked at me and smiled, and he said, that's what the doctors say. And he went off. And at the time, I was still living at the place where I was brought up with my childhood friends. And they just knew me as Tiff, the oddball, really. And so I went back home because I was sharing the house with them, and I was like, you never guess what happened to me today, blah, 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 blah. And they were like, just... you're
nuts.
Yeah, she's just off again.
Yeah, Tiff's off on one, leave her to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the pregnancy was strange. Every 6 weeks I became incredibly ill at the weekend, vomiting and the worst cramps you could possibly imagine. So the doctors had to keep coming out and giving me injections, because especially in the early days they thought I was going to miscarry. It would start a miscarriage off. And it wasn't until right at the last 6 weeks that they decided to take me into hospital during one of these attacks and see what was going on. So they put me up to a monitor, and you could just go boop, 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 and you just thought something's not right. It's a heart monitor of the baby. So the nurse takes the monitor out, comes back in with another monitor, does the same thing. So she takes the monitor back out, comes back in with another monitor, does the same thing. And so she blames the equipment and kind of just dismisses the whole session. I go home, And I just thought, yeah.
Something's not right.
Yeah. And I thought, but, you know, this is exactly the way it's supposed to be, because if I'd have known previously at that age, you know, what was wrong with Lauren, I'm not completely sure I would have had her.
Yeah.
So, you know, so it was all the way it was meant to be. But still, I'm blocking it from my mind, you know, because there's no kind of hardcore proof, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, November the 9th comes and goes. And my mum goes with me to the hospital to book him for induction. And the receptionist is there, and she's looking through the diary, and all the pages are going, and she's like going, oh my goodness. And I'm just say to my mum, she's not coming till November the 24th.
No.
And the lady just opens up the diary. She was like, the next slot we've got available is November the 24th.
That's spooky.
I just looked at my mum and smiled, and told my friends at home, and they still were like, don't know what to say to that.
Yeah.
Let's pretend she hasn't said anything.
Yeah.
You know?
Don't remember that story.
Yeah, absolutely. So November the 24th came, and they induced me, and all I remember is the heart monitor being back and it being really dodgy, if that's the word. And it was just like the whole medical team was all around me. Someone was ripping off my jewellery. Somebody was giving me a sign saying, sign this. And I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, well, you know, the baby's in distress. We just need to get you in for a C-section. So they kind of roll me out of that place into theatre. And my husband then, he was not allowed in. And one of the last things was seeing his face in the hall. And then that just put me into tears, floods of tears. And the next thing I know, I wake up to a Polaroid. And it's my husband showing it to me, my husband at that time. And he's saying, oh, we've got this beautiful baby girl, Tiffany. This beautiful baby girl, she's okay, she's intensive care, because she flatlined at birth and needed resuscitating, but she's okay.
Mm.
And he said, let's name her Lauren Etienne, which was interesting because his favourite group was Saint Etienne. And, you know, she passed on St. Patrick's Day today. And also Saint Etienne have an album called Too Young to Die.
Mm.
And on the back of there is a poem. And I was trying to find it today, but I couldn't find it. So it's obviously meant to be that way. But I know that it was like it was written for her.
Yeah.
So anyway, I couldn't really go and see her. I was dosed up with morphine. So it took a good 24 hours before I could be wheeled down to intensive care. And when I got there, she was tiny. She was like 4 pounds. She was rigged up to like a heart monitor because she would stop breathing still sometimes. She had a nasogastric tube for feeds. And she was covered in this like downy hair. And that was part of the reason they thought I got my dates mixed up. They thought downy hair, small, yeah, premature baby. But I knew I hadn't got my dates mixed up. So that first week was a bit of a mystery. They were trying to figure out what was actually wrong, should we say?
Yeah.
Wrong doesn't feel right, but what was going on.
What was going on, yeah, totally.
Yeah. And on the 5th day, they took her out of the incubator. And I came down to see her. And she was out of the incubator, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's... I mean, the love that I felt, I didn't think was possible. You know, it really is nothing like out of... It's just, words don't describe it.
Exactly.
And so to see her out of the incubator and actually be able to hold her, and, you know, after 5 days of giving birth and not being able to do that, was just immense. And I took it as some type of safety, you know, it was some type of good point.
Yeah.
And then the medical staff came along and said, we need to talk to you. And they took me to a room with the consultant, and the consultant said to me, "Where's your husband?" And I said, "At work." And he said, "So when will he be here?" I said, "Well, not until tonight." I think this was the morning time. And he looked like he was weighing up his thoughts about whether to go ahead or not. And then he said, "Lauren has Edwards syndrome." And I looked at him and I said, "Oh, well, at least it's not Downs."
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he said, "It's worse than Downs." And I said, "Pardon?" And he said, "Well," he said, "Downs is," he said, "all syndromes are about having 3 chromosomes.
Yeah.
They're called trisomies. So when you have your pair from your mum and the pair from your dad, and they come together and they multiply, you get even amounts. But in cases of syndromes, the maths go wrong and you get an extra chromosome, so it's called a trisomy." And he said, so Dr. Downs found trisomy number 21 and Dr. Edwards found trisomy number 18, chromosome 18. He said, but in Lauren's case, it was even more complex because they not only split wrong once, they'd split wrong twice. And so some of her cells have gone back to being even. So in this case, 2 wrongs made a right.
Yeah.
And so he said, we don't really know. If she was full Edwards syndrome, she wouldn't live past her first year of infancy, probably, which is why you don't hear about it. It's very, very rare. It's like lightning striking. You can't be carriers because you wouldn't be here. And maybe it is more common than we think because miscarriages may well be
caused because of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he's saying, you know, you're obviously very good at carrying children. And these hips had to be good for something.
Yeah. They served the purpose.
Yeah, exactly. They brought her into the world, full strength hips. So interestingly, with the vomiting and everything along those lines throughout it as well. So basically, that was the case of where we were at. They didn't know what her future was, so she had to go through all of these tests, and we were told that you know, she was deaf, that her main thing that was affected was corpus callosum, which is about the left and the right channels of the brain. So it's all to do with coordination and things along those lines.
So she can't hold her neck up. She can't.
Exactly.
No motor skills, basically.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Fists, they said, would stay clenched because she was born with clenched fists. She'd never cry for a feed. We'd always have to feed her through the tube. And the main thing was her heart. She had about 4 major problems.
And holes in the heart as well, right?
And that was mainly where the syndrome was. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thickened valves, holes in the heart, all of that type of thing. So they told me all of this, and I just needed to get out. So I just left. Not
surprising. No, you know, not surprising.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I had to get out, and I myself was just recovering from an emergency C-section, and my blood was very low. And in my desperatism to try and get out, I actually got very lightheaded and had to stop. So the nurse kind of caught up with me and said, come and see Lauren. And I just looked at her and said, no way. And I went back up to my, I was about to say cell. It really felt like a cell then, but it was my little room in the hospital. And I sat there and it was darkness like I've never known darkness. I mean, November's dark anyway, right? It's just before the solstice and it's getting darker and darker, but I was in this room and I just felt this darkness cave in. Oh, yeah, it was so strong. I've never felt anything like it. And I just had this message really, and it was just like, it's now or never, you know. This is as dark as it gets. Which way are you going to go? And it was literally like it got so compressed on me that it pushed me out the door. And as soon as I got out the door, I had this kind of strength. And I went down and I picked her up and I sat there and I cried. And Robbie Williams' Angels had just come out and it started playing on the radio. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is her song. I thought it was John Bon Jovi at the time. I didn't realise it was Robbie Williams. I guess there was a lot going on.
Yeah, but you didn't have his album though, did you, anyway? No. So you can get away with that, it's fine. Don't worry. I don't think you was too concerned about the artist of the song. You heard, I think more the fact that you heard Angels, right?
Yeah.
You know, that's the key message there.
Absolutely.
You know, and that gave you some, you know, some comfort as well, I'm sure.
Absolutely did. And so I was there and I was having this beautiful moment with my daughter, and this nurse came in and she was just, you know, trying to be empathic, you know, and she was like, oh my gosh, you must be thinking, why you? I just turned and I said, no. And she was like, pardon? And I was like, I'm thinking, why not me? You know, I'm thinking that this is me for a reason, you know, because I can love her. I can love her maybe more than anyone else could at this time, or something along those lines. And I kind of made this commitment there and then not to be in fear. And to practice living by the angel of death in a way, you know. And I felt so blessed to know that she was going. I felt so blessed to be able to bring that practice of consciousness into every single day with her.
And pure love.
Absolutely.
Unconditional love. Pure unconditional love.
Absolutely. And so that's what we did. And we took her home. They said we were taking her home to die.
They said that to you?
Yeah, they said that.
So basically, this is how many days after she's born now that they was going to let you take her home?
We had to stay in the hospital for a while because we had to learn how to be able to
feed her and look after her and care for her, because she had these, you know, these struggling defects in relation to the heart and stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you was in there for there, and then they said you're basically taking her home to die.
Yeah.
And when they said infancy, they're thinking maybe 1 year she might live.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah. No, that's great to kind of clarify it. And I remember taking her home. Like we left the hospital and we got into the car park, and there was this random meeting with this woman, and she just looked at me and she looked at Lauren and she looked at me again and she said, "You don't know how lucky you are." And I was like, a mixture really of like, but if I'm honest, I think I was kind of like, it kind of made me gulp, you know, and I kind of made a promise there and then never to say to someone, you know, you don't know how lucky you are ever again, and I never have. But
she said it from a place of seeing that Lauren was beautiful and that you had a baby.
I'd probably guess she couldn't even have that baby, you know. Yeah,
so what I mean is she see the baby, she see the gift, and she's like, you don't know how lucky you are, meaning like, you know, you've got a gift there.
Yeah, absolutely. And she was right.
Yeah.
But then again, maybe she wasn't right. Maybe I did know how lucky I was in that sense. But in the human lower level of me was like,
but also I'm not. You must have felt at that point as well that I'm not lucky.
Yes.
You don't don't actually know what's happening. I'm going home with this baby. She's got 1 year to live. She's dying. I've just had this whole experience. I mean, you don't know about luck. Exactly. Don't let me. You know. So there's sort of massive mixed opinions there. Although we're going to hear that it is an amazing gift, but still, at that point, that must have been quite. I don't know how you like you say challenging. Yeah. Challenging. To say the least.
Yeah. But I feel like Lauren's story is a huge synchronistic kind of message, and she was definitely a part of that. So we took her home, and her progress was phenomenal when she was at home. They didn't believe me. I don't think they believed me, because they said that she would never engage, she would never follow us, she would never hear, she would never smile. And she started to do that. I mean, Neil massaged her hands.
I love that story.
And they started to work.
Yeah. And he massaged them every day, right?
Yeah, every day. And he would do this like kind of funny game where he'd like make noise and go from one ear to the other, and she'd be like, and the phone would ring and it would wake her up. She'd jump. And I was like, she can hear, you know, she can hear. And I was saying to them, she can hear. And they eventually took her back for a test.
Yeah, because they probably thought you're nuts. That's the thing with doctors at first. It's like, yeah, every mum says that. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, of course she can hear.
She's in denial.
Yeah, she's in denial. She just can't accept. And they probably get call after call.
Yes.
But, you know, you took her back down there.
Yeah, and they gave her a hearing test. She had A1 hearing. So gone from deaf to A1 hearing. And she started to smile. And that was funny because she'd forget because of the corpus callosum. So she'd be like,
So am I supposed to smile? Yeah, it's there, it's somewhere there. No, because she had the mix as well, though. That's the thing, isn't it?
Exactly.
So she's going through that, you're seeing that mix of the two.
Exactly. Yeah. And we've got it all on video. It's incredible to see. It's really incredible to see. And so we got quite optimistic. You know, sometimes she'd even start feeding from the bottle and things along those lines. So we got quite optimistic. Being young as well, you know, I just turned 20, and she was putting weight on. I thought, wow, this is amazing. She's growing. She's actually doing amazingly well.
And you're giving her more love, and Neil's massaging, and do you know what I mean? You're getting these, totally.
Yeah, absolutely. So I couldn't work out why the nurses were really anxious, and it kind of turned out that the weight she was putting on was water retention. And she started to cry more and more, and she'd go very, very blue when she did. And I remember the day that they said, we need to take her back into hospital, Tiffany. And she'd cry. She wasn't settling very well, but she would settle, and she would beam the most beautiful smile. And there was something about this smile. This smile was a massive gift. And I remember once before being sat with her, and I'd fallen asleep. And The Fifth Element was on. And there's a classical part. Have you seen The Fifth Element?
I have, but many years ago. Yeah, many years ago.
Okay. An alien singing, and it's the most beautiful kind of operatic voice. And something stirred me. I don't know if it was that or if it was Lauren, but I opened my eyes and I looked down. I saw Lauren, and she was beaming. She was looking at me right in the eyes, and she was beaming. And I was like, wow. And it was just such a beautiful moment, and it felt like the music for her had really touched something in her. And so she was still beaming this smile when they were saying, Tiffany, we need to take her back into hospital. And we took her back into hospital, and they were gobsmacked. They were like, we don't understand how she's still alive, Tiffany. She's got oxygen saturates of 27. It shouldn't be below 97 if she was alive. And her heart rate is 248 beats a minute.
That's over off
manic.
the scale.
Manic.
Yeah.
And that's how hard her body was working, you know, to keep her here.
Yeah.
And so many people were praying, actually, that she somehow made it through. And actually, the day that she died, I'd found out that somebody prayed that if it was her time, she was to go. And it just makes you think the power of prayer and
intention,
highest good, and how important that is, you know, in that sense.
She was holding on.
She was holding on. And when we took her into hospital, she something in her broke. Something in her just went, and that was obviously probably the worst 2 weeks of my life.
Yeah.
To see your child in so much pain and not be able to do anything. I mean, her veins were collapsing, and they were trying like mad to get veins all the times, and it was awful to see her in so much pain and hear her in so much pain. And she always had this head tug, but it was getting worse. Her whole body was heaving with every breath. And she started having these fits where she'd aspirated milk into her lungs, and she got pneumonia as well as heart failure. So they came in and they said, Tiffany, Lauren's dying and she's in pain. We want to step up the morphine as much as we can, because that will just make it an easier, quicker transition. They said you do have a choice. You can put her on life support, but we don't really see the point of that. And it's like, right.
Choice.
Yeah, choice. And so what do you do in that situation? Are you going to let, your child who's in severe amounts of pain just stay on this machine? There was a machine at the time of her birth, and I certainly didn't want that for her death. I wanted to hold her. I couldn't do that at her birth. I was sure as hell going to hold her. So we kind of, being young as well, going back, I might not have taken her into hospital. I wish I'd have known Reiki at those times. We always have these wishes, but everything is the way that it's meant to be. And I do believe that. And so we held her pretty much all day.
Do you want a tissue?
Yeah, that would be good, thank you. I actually really need the loo too.
Simon on the sofa, you can do anything you want. It's our sofa.
Bog roll.
It's bog roll. That's how I roll. That's all I had to hand. I need some tissues.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you want to go toilet?
I think maybe I'll just finish this part and then go. We'll not break the flow of this, and then I'll flow some other way. So, yeah, we held her, and that was, leading up to it, it was scary. There were times she'd come round and she looked in fear, to be honest, and that was really, really hard to take.
Take your time.
Yeah, I mean, what can you do except hold her? And then at 7:20, she passed. And oh my God, that experience was incredible. I felt her soul leave her body. It came out through her mouth, and it went out the window. It was just like,
Her last breath just took the soul.
And the peace that was in that room was like nothing I'd ever felt. Nothing I'd ever felt. But then, no matter how much you have the message from that, no matter how much you feel that you have assimilated from that, and I felt that Lauren had come into my life because before, if a nurse had said to me, why me, I would have been like, oh my God, I know, everything really bad always happens to me, blah, 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 blah. I saw everything as a negative.
Yeah.
Everything as a negative. And I was totally depressed. I hated life. Couldn't stand it. It was painful, torturous. And then getting to that point where you're at that place, you know that you just have to go one way or another. You know?
Yeah, there's,
one way or another.
There's either out or up. Down,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Totally.
And so I knew, in a way, or I felt that Lauren had come to show me consciousness, to show me presence, to show me the gift of life.
Love.
And love.
Unconditional love.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I spoke about in her funeral as well, about how people can teach you maths. So you go to school, you learn maths, you learn English. It takes somebody that's never been to school to maybe teach you about life and love. Yeah. You know? And so I knew that I had to accept that she was no longer here. And I knew that I had to cope with that pain, but actually do it justice. You know?
Own it.
Absolutely. But at the same time, you're human, right?
Yeah.
At the same time, I'm a grieving mother. And the most interesting thing was she passed just before Mother's Day.
Yeah.
You know, and the very next day a card came. I was still in the hospital, and it was a card from one of my oldest friends, and I opened it and it was addressed to Lauren, and it was giving her love and saying, say hi to your mummy for me. And the postmark on the envelope said, Happy Mother's Day. And I thought, oh my God, you know, my first Mother's Day, and I'm childless.
Yeah.
I'm not childless, she's still around, but it was...
So this was in the course of a year?
This was, she was 4 months old when she died.
She was 4 months old when she died?
Yeah, she was 4 months old.
So you just had all that impact of stuff at 20 years old?
Yeah.
For 4 months. Intense experience.
Yeah.
Emotional experience. Just, you know...
Absolutely.
You know, the whole heap.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's just like to see, you know, to know you now, and then, you know, to have that experience where we spoke about it, but, you know, we didn't mention it, and then to bring that in and then transmute it, which we're now going to hear as well, is just, for me, is just, you know, it's powerful. You know, it's powerful.
It is powerful. You know, when I was a grieving mother, even though I had this inner faith that kept me going, and this message, and I really felt that she'd come here for that, and I felt that I had to do that justice and do that honour. I was like a zombie, you know. It was just a case of going to bed, having the dream that she was still alive, that I was too late, and that she would die again and again, and then I'd wake up in the morning, and that reality then is like, it's not just a dream, it's real. And it was a sense of her dying again every morning. Every time I woke up, she'd die again. And every time I went to bed, she died over and over again. And I'd walk out on the street and there'd be prams. I couldn't go to mother care. I couldn't handle seeing anybody shout at their children. And I was just this walking pain. Yeah,
your whole reality became that pain, that reflection of that pain. Yeah.
Yes. And also what happened was, we were in the army. We were an army family, funnily enough, with the connotations with what's come through now.
Yeah.
And they posted us, or that we needed to be posted. So they posted us to stay in the area of Lauren's hospital. And they posted us to a ground floor flat in case she needed oxygen. And the posting was due to happen the week after Lauren's funeral. So I was still in my hometown at that time, never left. And a week after Lauren's funeral, we had to leave. And although we were still in the catchment area, it was 2 hours away from home. And when you've just always lived in home, it's a big transition.
Of course.
So a week after the funeral, I was in a flat that was meant for Lauren, but she wasn't there. And I left my family and my friends in a sense, and strange things actually started to happen. Like friends that people didn't know Lauren, you know, there was not that connection, nobody knew her. And they'd come in and they'd be like, "It smells like babies in here." And I smelt it, and it was something that I'd said. I used to hold her and I used to sniff. Oh, be in heaven with that smell. There's something about that smell. And I just used to say, "I can have you on video, I can hear you, I can see you, I can touch your clothes. But that smell's not going to be there." And that smell, I could smell it really strong for 6 months. But when people came in and didn't even know about it, it smells like babies.
They were smelling it too, yeah.
Yeah.
Powerful.
Her toys would go off, and there was like a 3D picture. So somebody had done for Lauren, and it was like a cross section of a nursery, and they'd written Lauren on and put a gold ring round it, so it looked like a frame of her name. And one day, a book fell off the shelf and hit it, bang, and the book fell on the floor, and the picture had fallen with it. And I picked the picture up and put it back up, and the gold ring round Lauren had fallen on the toy's baby girl's head, so it was like a halo.
No, a halo.
Yeah, and literally her tapes would stop and play themselves.
So there was some spirit. There was some stuff going on.
There was strong. She was strong for 6
was
months.
you in tune? Was you in tune? I know you got that sort of mystical, spiritual background, if you want to use those words. But you know, was you very much in tune with spirit and stuff like that at that point?
I was. I always have been, but I didn't understand it at that point. So I used to be like Tiffany, the freak that weird things happen to, and I thought, yeah, I am.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not in control of this. It just so happens that weird things happen to me.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just weird.
Yeah.
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 So when this started to happen, you felt a strong presence within what was going on. There was things happening.
I even saw her on the sofa.
She might be here with us now.
Yeah. I mean, she used to lie on the sofa, and she loved that. And I turned around and I actually even saw her there for, must have been about a good half a minute. And it was like, my gosh, my goodness. And that was strong for 6 months. And then her presence would be strong at certain times, but not so much as I started to get stronger. Because, you know, people, they don't know what to say to you. You know, I don't know what to say to people that have
Nobody
had
knows
death.
what to say in death. This is the whole thing about death, is that, you know, death is so feared that it's taboo, isn't it? You don't know how to act around death, you don't know how to talk about death, you don't know if you should mention somebody's died or not died, or if you talk about them, maybe you're holding on to them still, or you're not letting them go, or if you bring it up, it's like, how, well, she's speaking about the child that died, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know how to act like that. Do I say it's okay, it's not okay, you know? Then other people start to take the projection on that it's them, they've acted in the wrong way. I mean, death is just, if people learnt to realise that death was part of life and that it's okay to speak about it, then actually that would change. Wouldn't that change so much in relation to the way we communicate? Yeah. Just to go, look, you know, somebody's passed on. But life and death is part of the same thing. It's the cycle, you know. But people don't, do they? And you just can't talk about it. Not here.
I mean, I think the Tibetans have it really sussed. They've got the book, the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, you know, and it's really like a training course in how to live like that. But yeah, I mean, people would say to me, one of the things that people would say is, you'll never get over losing your child. It's the worst thing that could ever possibly happen to someone. And in a way, I quite liked that one because it kind of validated me, and it gave me permission to feel the way I was feeling.
Yeah.
And also you have this overwhelming sense of guilt. The thought of actually getting over it feels like a betrayal to your child. And so I quite liked that one, but it still felt like a life sentence.
Yeah.
And then the next one was, oh, you know, there'll come a day where you don't think of her. That to me was like sacrilege. I was like, oh my gosh, you know, oh God,
yeah, I'm not ready for that.
No.
Stay back.
Absolutely.
And this was early on when she'd passed as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then there was you can always have another one, which was like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah. And that's just, these are the way people, you know, support you at that time.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think it's just a very individual thing, no matter what, isn't it? This whole experience is often, I know we're here with everybody, but fundamentally, we could say life and death really is still an individual experience, isn't it? You know, people can say what they're thinking, what they're feeling, how you can accept, how you can forgive, and so on. But it's very much an individual journey. Because I have another friend who lost a baby at a young age as well, and you know, it's just. I don't think you can really. How can you even know what to say to somebody? Because even if you've had an experience, you don't know what to say to somebody, and you've had that experience. No. Even if you say, well, you can't say I know what it feels like, because you don't.
That's right.
It's completely unique for somebody else, and if somebody's 20 or 25, 30, life experiences differently, it's just unique, isn't it? I think the only thing you can do really is hug someone.
Beautiful.
Hold them.
Absolutely.
Be there. Make them tea. You know what? I don't know.
That's very true.
You know?
It is very true. But I do think there does come a day, or at least for me. I don't know when that day was, but I do remember the first 2 years being hell. And from then on, everything started to get better and better. And then one day, I just thought, I thought of Lauren. And at first it was like all this guilt, you know, like, oh my God. Well, she wasn't the first thing I thought of when I woke up this morning. Oh my God. You know. But it's like, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's all right. As the time's gone on, it's totally okay.
Yeah.
It's totally all right.
Because you haven't actually ever forgotten her. The fact that you've not thought about her instantly doesn't, you know, almost there's a pressure to that, isn't there? You've never forgotten about her, hence why we're sat here 14 years later, you know. So you don't actually forget. It's not about forgetting, it's about accepting, and accepting isn't forgetting, which often we, you know, we mistake, don't we?
Yes.
You know, people think, oh, well, if I accept, well, I'm a bad person, I'm never gonna, you know, I'm never gonna think of them again. What sort of person am I?
Yeah.
So, all right, I'll keep my grief. Yeah.
Yeah. Get so attached to it, don't we? We'd rather be with that than kind of, So that ties in to the next part, but I really need the loo now, Simon.
No, but do you know what's really powerful is that powerful is my word tonight. It's just such a powerful story, just so wonderful, so transparent and so pure. That's sort of and I don't know how you feel about this, but I just ask you now anyway because of what else we want to share. That's coming up to nearly an hour. Yeah. So we could actually do because you need a wee break. I've got the bog roll out. You can go on the sofa.
Use the Tibetan bowl.
Yeah, use the Tibetan bowl, and we don't have to move. We can just keep filming. Commode bowl. the commode singing bowl.
Of Tibetan living and dying.
Just as you're weeing. No, stop it.
The nectar of life.
What we could do is we could do 2 parts, couldn't we?
Yeah, I think
so. Because I think that, you know, you can't, and I'm sure the people watching, you know, you can't rush this transparency, and that's the thing about communication, is that deep, transparent, honest communication takes time. It takes, you know, it takes a journey, you know, and often we don't have that time in life now, do we? We don't want to share, we don't want to communicate everything. We haven't got time to communicate. So what I would say is, you sort of brought it round full circle. So if we say this is part 1, as the, you know, the story of Lauren, which is a beautiful, I think, encapsulated piece to celebrate her anniversary and her birthday in the spirit realm. But this actually leads on, which come from the story of Sabi. I'm just going to do this for the people listening. We was talking about the story of Sabi to the experience of communicating to the people that have had bereavements.
Yes.
And then that was leading up after the November birthday on the 24th, leading up to sort of January, February. Then me and you, when did we see each other? Was it January?
It's February.
It's February, wasn't it? And in February, we decided to bring this beautiful talk about Lauren and Tiffany's experience, which if you've watched this, I mean, you know, for Tiffany to share this on the sofa for me is really a blessing in every way. And I hope if there's, you know, people watching this out here, you can take something from this wonderful story. But this leads on, the reason why we're sharing this story as well is Lauren's got a big part in what we're going to share with you in part 2, which is the synchronicities that have led us to what Tiffany's actually putting in place at the moment, which is a mass gathering to create peace and harmony with the shifts that are happening in our current consciousness, with the, you know, with the whole talk of 2012, the aligning planets, and how through Tiffany and the tarot and her connection to spirit, how she synchronistically linked these together to now wanting to create a real union of peace and a basically you could call it a ceremony if you want to call it a ceremony, but more of a gathering of people that really are moving into this time now that want to say this old reality just doesn't serve us, and a reality of love, a reality of consciousness, a reality of truth, deep communication, transparency, authenticity is the only way. And that gives me shivers up my back when I say that. So that's part 2. Please join us, and you know you're going to hear more. And then from that point, we're also I'm going to go down and film this event in May. So here we are. Basically, this is part 1. As I've said, you're going to come and see part 2, I hope. And this is Midnight Sofa. This is like, we got a sleepover. I got my wonderful girlfriend in the room. We got, you know, I'm at my mum's house. This is like sleepover sofa. So thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for sharing.
Oh, thank you so much for allowing me to share.
Wonderful, really beautiful. Okay,
Oh,
go.